China's President Xi Jinping has declared the Winter Olympics open at an unusually low-key ceremony due to the pandemic and a diplomatic boycott over human rights abuses. The main venue is the Bird's Nest Stadium, already familiar to sports fans after it was the main focus for the 2008 Summer Olympics. Well, spectators were thin on the ground because of strict COVID restrictions. From Beijing, our correspondent Robin Branch reports.
China's capital city, an Olympic host for the second time. The Bird's Nest Stadium, built for 2008, is still glorious. But there's a different man in charge now, and it feels very different in 2022. Xi Jinping promised a safe, efficient Games.
For most people in Beijing tonight, this is the closest they're going to get to the opening ceremony of the Olympic Games. Watching it on a roadside near the stadium or on a walkway over the motorway. We're actually being moved away from this area at the moment. Now, that's not because there aren't enough tickets on sale. There are no tickets on sale to members of the general public. That's part of those extreme COVID restrictions.
I came to feel the vibe, this woman told us. Standing at her side, her son asked, "Can we see it or not, Mum?" "It doesn't matter," she said, "at least we're trying." For the athletes, just getting here is a lifetime achievement, but their leaders have stayed away. Britain, like Australia and around a dozen others, has joined a US-led diplomatic boycott, a protest over what they claim is egregious abuse or even genocide carried out by China against Muslim minorities here. But this leader was here. In fact, he was the star guest. Russia's President Putin is one of 20 or so presidents, prime ministers or kings who are keen to show their support for China in person. But Mr. Putin came for more face-to-face talks, and he's agreed trade and energy deals and a new friendship of closer cooperation with China. They used to share communist rule. Now what binds Russia and China is concern about resurgent US influence, as tension over Ukraine increases by the day. The moment the Olympic flame was installed was a subtle one, no big cauldron set alight. But not so the other message sent out by the hosts from this stadium, that China and Russia are forging a new, much closer friendship. Robin Brandt, BBC News, Beijing.
Well, let's talk more about this and how close President Xi Jinping is to President Putin, because I'm joined by Professor Steve Tsang. He is the director of the China Institute at the School of Oriental and African Studies. Thank you very much for being with us. Well, what do you make of this? Do you see this as a new partnership, a new strategic alliance between Russia and China?
It's a strategic partnership, not quite an alliance, but there are real common strategic interests shared by Xi Jinping and Putin, one of which is to make the world safe for authoritarianism. The other is to take the United States down a notch or two. And thirdly, to use their views of security and get the rest of the world to accept their definition of their security.
I suppose we've got used to, in a sense, the United States and NATO and the G7 and the G20 sort of setting the rules, if you like, setting the agenda for the world, and China and Russia saying, well, no, hang on a minute, we want to perhaps set some of the rules.
Well, that is right. China doesn't want to change the UN system. China wants to have a much greater say in how it works. China wants to be leading the world. In many ways, I think Russia is also trying to push to make Russia being respected under Putin.
I suppose, in a sense, what Putin was going to see the president of China about was Ukraine and trying to get Chinese support for his policies there. We don't know what he's planning to do. We don't know whether he's planning to invade Ukraine or not. What do you think is the Chinese view of the Ukrainian crisis? Would they support a Russian invasion?
China would have preferred no war over Ukraine. It does have strong relationship with Ukraine, and it doesn't want to spoil that. But if it is being forced to choose between Ukraine and Russia, China will choose to support Russia if the chips were to come down. not militarily, but economically.
And let's just talk a bit about the Olympics. We were seeing the opening ceremony there. It's a pared-down Winter Olympics, as we've been saying. But how important is it for China and for Chinese sort of pride and prestige that these games go well?
Well, it is incredibly important to Xi Jinping. The Winter Olympics essentially is Xi Jinping's games, and he will have to make sure that it is a tremendous success domestically in order to ensure that at the party congress towards the end of this year, he will get his third term, which will be the beginning of his rule as a lifetime ruler of China. People in China don't really have a say on a matter like this. It's up to Xi Jinping.
Professor Steve Tsang, Director of the China Institute at the School of Oriental and African Studies, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.